Hi, it's Maxine, your spiritual astrologer, and welcome back to the podcast, to my channel, where you'll learn how to use astrology in a more empowering and soul-centered way. Now, if you're wondering, what does Chiron really actually mean in astrology, and what does Chiron more personally to you, what does Chiron mean in your birth chart? So how can you begin to figure out what healing message does Chiron have for you? Because Chiron in astrology is a part of astrology that I find is not emphasized as much as I really wish it would be. And so I'm hoping that through this video, you can feel into that for yourself and see if there's a resonance there of perhaps you wanting to dive into Chiron more, to look in your chart, to see what medicine Chiron has for you. Because Chiron, you may have heard it, is the wounded healer. That's from the mythology, of course, of Chiron being the centaur, half man, half horse. He's wounded, but the irony is he's able to heal others. He has a gift there, but he's unable to fully heal himself. And so with Chiron looking in your chart, it shows you, yeah, there's a wound there. There's some deep suffering there, but it's to be healed. You're not going to stay stuck there. There's pain to be alchemized in this lifetime. Your soul is so ready for that healing. So before I just dive into all of it, I'm going to share with you the 5 key things you need to know about working with Chiron in your birth chart, working with Chiron in astrology, and exploring the deeper significance of this and seeing if it is something that you want to dive into deeper for yourself. And of course, if you do want to dive deeper into it with me, I do have my program, Spiritual Astrology School, where you get a really intensive look at how to read birth charts, transits, and more in a really soul-centered, impactful way. So if you are interested in learning more, I'll put that in the show notes, or you can go to MaxineLuthia.com. But we dive so deep into Chiron. It's something I'm so passionate and nerdy about. So this will really be the abridged version, looking at Chiron. And if you're interested in diving deeper, feel free to check that out. We'd love to have you join. Okay, so let's now get into this much requested episode on Chiron. And there's really 5 key things I'm going to touch on here that you need to know when working with Chiron in astrology, when reading what is the meaning of Chiron in your birth chart. And I have notes here, so don't just go down a rabbit hole, because Chiron is such a rich topic. There's so much gold here for you. Also to note, I do have below another tutorial for you if you don't know how to locate Chiron, so that will be there if you're interested. But Chiron, the first thing you need to know about what Chiron means in your birth chart is, number 1, it is the source of some pain. There's a soul wound wherever Chiron is in your birth chart, and this gets into, Chiron by sign placement, by house placement, by aspects it's making to other planets. There's so many different aspects you can dive into there, or different parts of the puzzle. But with Chiron, it really does point to, quite simply, a wound that your soul carries in this lifetime. Now, oftentimes when we're talking about a wound, that is a source of pain. That is a source of struggle or suffering, especially earlier in life. So there is going to be some sort of challenge. And what that looks like to you, how significant or severe that feels, it does vary chart to chart. But the thing is, it's there. Everyone has a Chiron in their birth chart. You have one, I have one. We all have these tender, soft spots in our chart. And Chiron really pinpoints, where is that wound? Where is that wound? And it's important to see that can show up when there's a wound. There tends to be a desire to cover that, to protect, to defend, to make sure that you are, if you get cut or you get a wound or something, you're going to want to hold on to it. You want to cover it up. If you imagine when that happens, it's just kind of, you hold it close. And so with Chiron, there can tend to be that kind of knee-jerk reaction, that trigger that Chiron brings up. And so it's really helpful to keep in mind that wound needs your awareness. You need to know where that is. Just as you would want to know where is that wound in your physical body or physical vessel, it's the same thing with Chiron, but at a soul level. Where in your soul, where in your life experience do you feel this wound? Where do you need to be mindful, aware, bring awareness to where is that in your life, so that way you can become aware of how to really be mindful that you're tending to that you're not always just being, defensive in a way. You're actually seeing, okay, let's make sure that wound is looked at. Let's make sure that is tended to. Let's make sure you have that light of awareness, of compassion, of grace with yourself there. So that is what we're talking about with Chiron. It is that wound of your soul. It's that source of pain. So there is that part of it. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. So a lot of people, you may have read about that. You may already know this piece. But Chiron, it's really to be mindful that where there's a wound, it's not just like, oh, there's just a wound. You get to do something about it. Once you have that awareness, it's like, oh, that's an area wherever Chiron is that you want to make sure you're being aware of. You bring that awareness when you learn what yours is. And then you're able to say, okay, let's approach this in a different way. Instead of hiding, defending, let's open up here. Let's receive the support, the help, the healing that you deserve. That is Chiron. The second key thing to know about Chiron in your birth chart and Chiron in astrology is it points to an insecurity that you may feel. So an insecurity, where do you not feel secure? Where do you not quite feel calm? What area of life is it for you that you feel this sense of needing to, again, defend, be protective of yourself? And oftentimes with that insecurity, it can show up as an area of life that you tend to not feel safe and not feel just naturally grounded in. And you may not feel worthy there. There may be this feeling wherever Chiron's placed of not being quite sure that you are worthy of what you receive there. And that's something that needs your healing. Remember, not staying stuck there, knowing that Chiron is the wound, it is also the medicine. So wherever Chiron is, it does show that insecurity. It does show this place where perhaps you you try to overcompensate for some perceived sense of lack in yourself. But wherever Chiron is, you're recognizing that you are whole, that your soul is not missing anything. Just as when we're talking about Chiron, it's understanding, without getting too deep into it, there's this need to recognize it's not just you're this or that. It's recognizing that you can feel that sense of insecurity. You can feel that sense of self-doubt. You can feel that sense of lack. You can feel that sense of pain and also recognize it and recognize that you are not that. Recognizing that you are worthy. Recognizing that you are safe. Recognizing that you do belong, whatever that is for you. So oftentimes it can just look very obviously as a trigger, like very surface level, wherever Chiron is, that can show you in your birth chart or in others, in your partners, in your friends, in your family members, in your coworkers, whoever it is, where will they tend to act out of that, again, knee-jerk reaction of self-preservation, of defense, of feeling insecure? Where do they need to build up more confidence? So they're not overcompensating for perceived lack, so they're not feeling a sense of guilt, so they really can be more steady in themselves and feel secure. So for example, let's say that you have Chiron in your second house. That can show up as financial insecurity. Even if you are, later in life, let's say earlier in life, perhaps there was financial hardship. Later in life, even if you reach that place of feeling good, feeling stable, you still might feel this fear that could shift. So that fear, that scarcity there could still be something that follows you until you're able to recognize that pattern and move through that and heal and alchemize that pain. And likewise, let's say you have Chiron in the third house, that could show up as earlier in life feeling an insecurity in the sense of your own intelligence. So doubting yourself or feeling, perhaps I'll see this really sadly when someone has been criticized a lot growing up, or even by a teacher, that perception of feeling they aren't smart enough. And so just like Chiron in the second house, maybe they make tons of money and they feel like, still that underlying sense of, are they worthy of it? Or could this change at any moment? With Chiron in the third house, this would show up as, even if they get a PhD, even if they are clearly not that which they were told they were earlier in life, right? That experience, that pain, that wound, it still stays with them at some capacity with Chiron in the third house here. So they still may fear that they're wrong in some sense, or fear being criticized. And then number 3, the third piece of what Chiron means in your birth chart, what Chiron signifies in a deeper level in astrology, is it shows where you may fear rejection, where you may feel that you are too different to be accepted. I've skirted around the word a lot, but Chiron really does relate to this piece of, where do you need to find that self-acceptance? So rather than fearing that rejection, fearing that you don't quite fit in some way, there's a need wherever Chiron is placed to really allow yourself to give yourself that acceptance that your soul really deeply desires. So for example here, if you have Chiron, let's say, in the 8th house, that one I'll see a lot where you may struggle in intimacy and trust. So really fearing, kind of always trying to push someone away before they can push you away, because there's a really big fear of rejection in intimate relationships. Similar to Chiron in the 7th house, for example, because those relate so closely to those connections and closeness. And so with Chiron, again, there's that defensiveness there too. That's part of pushing someone away before you can really be rejected. So there is this very visceral fear wherever Chiron is placed, where you may worry that you are not enough, and really worry that you are not enough to have someone put the effort in, or you're not enough to feel that connection you desire. You're not enough in some sense, but you're learning with Chiron that actually you do belong. Actually, you are enough there. And this comes from that mythology of Chiron, the centaur. If you think about that, he has half his body as a man, half his body as a horse. And so even that duality at play with Chiron of, he embodies 2 different worlds. And so not knowing where he belongs and actually being rejected by his mother at birth. So there's such that sense of fearing abandonment, fearing that you will be rejected by those who love you most, what you fear you can't live without. There's a sense of Chiron there of deep suffering, or fearing, if you are fully yourself, will you still be accepted? So self-acceptance is so important wherever Chiron is in your birth chart. And then number 4, what you need to know about Chiron in astrology and Chiron in your birth chart, what does it mean for you, is that Chiron, wherever it's placed in your birth chart, whatever that wound is, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. It shows you with Chiron where you were caught in the crossfire, where through no fault of your own, there was a pain that was inflicted upon you. And so with Chiron, that just takes you really deeper into that self-acceptance of knowing that perhaps Chiron, there's such a connection to the karma behind all of this, knowing that it also relates back to perhaps a parent or family, your ancestral line. So there's a need here with Chiron to really know that whatever this pain is, why there's a depth of pain where there's that deep sensitivity and suffering, it really can be traced back to generations before you. It's something that you are here to be a cycle breaker in some way. So allowing yourself to recognize that, and of course even certain charts, it just jumps out really strongly. But also the second piece to that is to knowing that your soul in this lifetime is so ready to heal that it really feels like your responsibility to heal that, to say this isn't your fault, And also you're ready to really let this end with you. So there's that sense of wanting to really alchemize this. It's alchemizing lead into gold. And that gets us to the fifth point here, because the fifth key meaning of Chiron in your birth chart in astrology is he is the wounded healer. And so in your birth chart, it shows where you have a gift for others, a gift to share with the world. Now, oftentimes we talked about the wound, right? So we know that Chiron points to this wound, this source of pain or struggle, insecurity, and also it shows where through that struggle you learn how to heal that, you learn how to alchemize that pain, you learn how to transcend that, to integrate that, accept yourself, and come out the other side. That is where you become the healer for others. So oftentimes if you look at Chiron, there's options there. With astrology, it's not just you are this. It's coming at astrology with this empowered perspective of knowing we have free will. And so seeing wherever Chiron is saying there's the option of staying stuck in that wound. And when you're there, also not meaning to, not consciously perhaps, but inflicting pain even on others through your hurt, through that suffering. And then also there's the option of really rising above that, working through that once you become aware of it. And only then, when you're aware, can you even start on that journey in a conscious path to healing. So with Chiron, there's this wound, but don't forget that there is the medicine as well. There is the way out, and also there's that gift that you are here to share with the world. With the mythology of this, Chiron was the wounded healer. He was also, as the healer, able to help others, even as he himself still held on to a sensitivity. He knew that there was a pain that he had, but he was still able to help others, even as he wasn't able to heal himself. So thinking about wherever Chiron is placed, how might that show up as a part of your journey that you're meant to be empathetic toward? You're meant to know what someone is going through. You're meant to deeply know that experience and then be able to share that with others, to help others, and say, hey, I know what you're going through. I've been there. Let me help you. Let me guide you. And they still have to do their healing on their own, but you are able to show up in a way that you're sharing your gifts. And that is the power of Chiron, that you're able to step into that part of your purpose of how you can share with others and show up in the world and make sure that that pain, that suffering is not for nothing. So for example, let's say that you have Chiron in your first house. That often will show up as a lack of confidence or a wounding in your self-image through, again, no fault of your own. And so I'll often see this with clients where perhaps growing up they absorbed some false belief about how they should look, what it means to be beautiful, and they don't see their own beauty, or they may have some body image issues. And so that is a piece of what they're here to heal. And at the same time, they can really easily, one of their gifts through that healing is being able to help others heal in that way, helping others to really love themselves from the inside out. Or let's say you have Chiron in your 11th house. That may very well point to perhaps early in life, or even in your lineage or past lifetimes even, an experience of betrayal from a friend. Someone you thought was your friend actually not being that. And so there's this wounding of getting close to another, of that connection. And again, through no fault of your own. And so the healing in that, and part of how you actually come into healing there, is through helping others feel that sense of trust, of connection in friendships, of perhaps having a gift of creating community. So I invite you to now look at your birth chart and find where is Chiron, what house is it in, what sign is it in, what aspects, all of that. And remembering that, of course, I do have below if you want to check out that tutorial for you if you're not sure of where your Chiron is. And if you don't have my downloadable guide, you can get that. It's for free, it's below. I also have, of course, some episodes on the houses too, so you can look for that and pair this, kind of blend that with that meaning, and look to see where does that fall and what does that bring up for you? What is that pain, that wound that you are here to alchemize? Where is that insecurity that's pointing you the way to say, this is a piece of your healing journey? And if you know your Chiron, once you look it up, let me know in the comments over here on YouTube, what house does Chiron fall in, what sign, any aspects, etc. And of course, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Would love to hear your lived experience, how that's shown up for you. And even if you've started to cultivate that gift, what is that for you? What does that look like? Really, the more that you do this work, if you are on this healing journey, if you watch till the end, I thank you, because the more that we heal ourselves individually, that has such a ripple effect. You are healing yourself and you are healing the world. I truly mean that. I truly believe that. And so thank you for doing that, for being that resilient person you are, to be able to consciously want to learn about Chiron, about astrology, of this tool of self-awareness to help you be the best you can be, to be the person you were put on this earth born to be. So thank you so much again, as always, for learning with me. If you want to dive deeper into Chiron and into other juicy aspects of astrology and blend it all together and feel confident reading astrology charts, would love to have you be a part of Spiritual Astrology School. We get into so much, and it's just such a joy for me to be able to share that with you. So would love to have you be a part of that. If you feel the call, you can check out MaxineLuthia.com or go to the show notes, or just reach out to me over on Instagram and I'll send you more info your way. But thanks so much for listening, and until next time, bye.